Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is former Oakland Raider David Nixon, the perfect guest for our topic today. David, first and foremost, what do you think about the Raiders' move to Las Vegas and how it affects BYU in the future?
First off, my season tickets already been purchased, ready to go. No, I'm just kidding. I think, as far as the Raiders moving down there, I think it's awesome. I saw a lot of buddies that are still in the front office for the Raiders, and so it'll be fun to have them a little bit closer, and maybe some of those Monday Night Football games or something, we can make it down there. But as far as BYU goes, listen, I mean, this is a $1.9 billion stadium, and so you'd figure it would attract quite a few different programs around the country. Realistically, I think you'd probably get another program in the West, maybe a USC or an Oregon or Washington would come down and meet BYU in the middle on a neutral field. I think it'd be tough to attract some of these East Coast schools, but yeah, no question. This is kind of the new site. I mean, BYU's now played last year, like you said, in the Cardinal Stadium. Now this is an opportunity to play in a brand new stadium, NFL stadium, on a neutral field, which I think most teams like, especially at the start of the season. So, we'll be excited to see if Tom Homo can put something together, and the stadium will be done for 3 years or so. So when that thing is done, get something on the schedule.
I bet you there'll be lots of great matchups there. I think it'll be the Cowboy Stadium of the West, if you will. What do you think of the idea of trying to get Notre Dame in Las Vegas so BYU at least gets a game with those guys again, because BYU went there twice and Notre Dame doesn't seem like they're going to come to Provo for a home game?
Yeah, I mean, I think any college loves the fact that they can get their players exposure to NFL stadiums. I mean, I think it's fun for not only the players, but obviously for the crowd too, and with the fans. And as we've seen with BYU playing in Cowboy Stadium, I never played there with BYU, but played there professionally a few times. I mean, that place is just impressive, and it's a sight to behold, and it's a fun experience, like I said, for everyone. And you got to figure now with the Raiders, this being the newest stadium, it'll be kind of a fun, interactive experience for the fans and the players as well. So, yeah, I think getting Notre Dame or any big-time program down there would be fun. It'll be intriguing because I read an article that they have to fill up so many more events to make it pencil for them.
30 more.
30 more. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, what other football games besides the Raiders and concerts and things like that. And the great thing about this is you're 5 hours drive and a quick hour flight down there, and fans here in Utah will have exposure to an NFL team much closer than say the Broncos.
In Southern California. I mean, that's a 4.5 hour drive for those fans. So I think this is an incredible setup for BYU football moving forward. And it's like the second home of BYU football now too. I want the practice to be down there. There's a fan fest going down there. BYU's playing UNLV this year. Las Vegas is a great spot for BYU.
And BYU owned the Las Vegas Bowl for 20 years.
You know that all too well.
I know it all too well. 3 years in a row. But Vegas is kind of BYU's home away from home, and it has been a great spot. There's a huge fan base down there, not only in St. George like we saw a few weekends ago, but down in Vegas as well. So no doubt that if BYU can get a neutral game there, it'll be a similar outcome to what happened in Arizona this year. We'll definitely pack the house.
Former Oakland Raider / Las Vegas Raider now, technically, David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation, discussing how things will change for BYU football in Las Vegas with that recent NFL move. And we all know that the goal for a great deal of these BYU football players is to go next level, and the Cougars just held their pro day last Friday, including the oft-discussed Taysom Hill. Quarterback ran a 4.44 40-yard dash, had a 38.5-inch vertical on pro day. Let's start with him. What did you think about his performance on Pro Day, and what will that mean for his chances of breaking into the next level of football?
I mean, it was incredibly impressive. Well, here's the thing. Everyone was impressive. Those times were just – I was blown away by these times. Every time they'd throw them up on the screen, I'm like, wait, Kai just ran a 4.5? I mean, and Taysom a 4.44, and Mike Davis in the 4.3s. I was like, what is going on right now? But Taysom coming out running a 4.44, especially here's kind of some inside tip, is the fact that he didn't know he'd be performing at Pro Day because he was still rehabbing the elbow until just a few weeks ago. And so he hadn't been practicing the 40. He hadn't been practicing a lot of these drills. And so all of a sudden he's feeling well, and his agent says, hey, let's do it, let's go. And so on 2 weeks' notice or so, he goes out there and puts together a 4.44. I mean, it's pretty impressive considering most guys spend the last 2-3 months practicing the technique, practicing your start, your burst for the first 10 yards. There's a lot that goes into those 40s, and he really only worked out for the last 2 weeks and was able to go, put out there that 4.44. So proud of him. I mean, we talked about before, he'd really been trying to slim down, trim down. He lost about 15 pounds, got down. He weighed in at 221. So a great weight for him. Obviously did well with the vertical. I knew he'd leap out of the gym. I've seen him do 360 dunks in person, and he's a freak. But I think from there, I was really impressed with his actual quarterback skills when they went out there on the field and did position work. And the balls that he was putting on his receivers right on the money. I mean, there were a couple overthrows when he was going super deep on 50-yard throws, but other than that, he hit a lot of the big 50-yard throws and stride as well. But beyond that, I mean, he was on the money everywhere. And if I'm Taysom Hill and comes the draft and something doesn't happen, which I don't believe will happen, I think he'll get picked up and he'll be on a team and at least get a shot. If something doesn't happen, I think I could live with myself pretty well in the sense that I went out there on my pro day, I performed well, I did everything I could, and I can live at peace knowing that, I mean, I posted some incredible numbers that I don't think any quarterback could ever touch, even moving forward. And so, I think he's got to be pretty happy with what he did. And then he goes out there, throws on some gloves, does some running back drills, comes out of the backfield, catches passes as if he's been catching passes for years. I think a lot of scouts were blown away. In fact, talking to his agent after the pro day, he said that a lot of scouts have come up to him and said, hey, we see Taysom as a quarterback. We see him coming in and contributing as a quarterback. I know there are some other scouts that thought differently, that maybe he's a free safety. So I think with his versatility, I think it'll be very intriguing to a lot of teams to look at him and say, hey, we can kind of shift him around and we can find a spot for him. Let's just get him signed. Let's get him to camp, and let's take a look at him and go from there. So I think come draft day, Taysom will have a lot of options of teams. If he doesn't get drafted, as he goes as a free agent, he'll have a lot of teams to choose from because obviously, as we know, when you become a free agent, it's then your choice. You get to pick where you want to go. And so I think that will be an interesting few hours after the draft when he has to decide where he wants to go. He'll have to evaluate everything with his agent and find the best fit for him.
Did anyone else stick out to you on pro days?
I loved Kai. I mean, Kai, I was expecting him. I thought if he ran the 4.5 range, that'd be huge for him. And sure enough, he ran a 4.5 flat, I believe. So, I thought the pro day for him, and we talked about this before, I thought that, it was going to be crucial for him to come out there and run. He's got great film. He shows he can come up and hit, but to run a 4.5 to show he's got the speed to cover, I think that was impressive. And then, of course, Mike Davis with the 4.3. I mean, he's got the physique. He's 6'2". He's a long corner, which these NFL teams love. And he's got the speed, which you can't really teach, right? I mean, that's just one of those intangible type things. So he's got those intangibles now. It's just, can he work on his technique and can he be converted to an NFL corner? And all in all, I think everyone performed well. Like I said, all the times blew me away. But it was fun watching them. And I think more than any other year, I'm excited for this year's draft to see where guys land, where Jamal goes. Is he a second rounder, third rounder? I know he continues to have quite a bit of buzz. So it'll be interesting to see where those guys land. And then if any of those guys go free agent, it'll be interesting to see where they land as well. Because, we see what happened with Danny Sorensen. If you can land on the right team, get an opportunity and go take advantage of it, you can be like Danny and go sign a nice, lucrative 4-year deal.
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation. Let's transition now to what is happening for BYU football in terms of the spring scrimmage, and spring football wraps up this week. But for the first time ever, we showed it on BYUtv. You watched it, David, probably from the comforts of your own home in that freezing cold drizzle that was happening at LaVell Edwards Stadium. But what was your main takeaway from the spring scrimmage last Saturday?
Yeah, I did have plans to come on down, but the second it started raining, I said I'm a wuss and I'm gonna stay right here on my couch and watch it on BYUtv. So, I was impressed with the team. Here's the thing: the conditions weren't great. They still have another week of spring ball, so you're still not completely done. In the fact that they're still installing and doing things that they'll continue to fine tune. But I was impressed with Matt Bushman. I know he's kind of been the talk of the scrimmage, but from a player's perspective and looking at his technique, and there were a couple balls that were thrown behind him that he had to adjust his body midair to grab, and then his breakaway speed on the long touchdown, the fact that he pulled away from safeties, and he reminded me a lot. I think a lot, Kalani mentioned he looked like Dennis Pitta. I think he looks just like Johnny Harline.
I said the same thing. He looks like Harline.
He's a little skinnier, taller. He's athletic. He made some great catches, and then when he runs, I'm telling you, he runs just like Johnny.
Yes.
He's like a gazelle that just kind of takes these long strides and moves down the field. He's very deceptive, and I remember this with Johnny all the time. He'd catch a pass and he'd burn these safeties and corners because they take terrible angles on him because they didn't think he was that fast. But you've got to understand your personnel, and I think Matt Bushman's one of those type of guys that you look at him and you're like, oh, I can catch him. Let me take this certain angle, and sure enough, he pulls away from me because he's got those long strides. So I was impressed with him. I think if he can continue to develop, I think he could be your go-to tight end this year. And it'll be interesting. The one position that does worry me a little bit is wide receiver. And, I think if Matt Bushman emerges as the go-to tight end, I think we might see Moroni, Laulu Pututau move possibly back outside and just be a bigger receiver like a Mitch Matthews and some of these big receivers we had in the past. I know Moroni's gained a lot of weight, but maybe he trends back down and moves outside if you have a go-to Matt Bushman. Of course, it's never bad to have depth, but no, I was impressed with Matt and what he was able to do. And, man, it was fun watching kind of that tight end reemerge in that position and see. I'm hopeful that offensively he can become a weapon because this offense, we saw from the running back position, and Reno mentioned it there at the game, it's going to be a running back by committee. And so you're going to need a few weapons across the board to kind of take the weight off those running backs and off Tanner. And if you can have that big body in the middle like Bushman is, then this offense, man, it could get clicking, and you could really help out the entire offense as a whole.
David, what level of concern do you have over Tanner Mangum's performance Saturday in the rain, spring scrimmage? Some people think it's a big deal. Others don't think it's a big deal at all.
I don't think it's a big deal at all. That's what spring is for. Spring is for quarterbacks to go out there and say, okay, I've got cover 2, I've got cover 3. Let me see if I can fit this ball in that window, and let me see if on this certain route against this certain coverage, let me try and take a risk here and see what happens. If it gets picked, Tanner says, okay, great, cover 2, I'm not going to throw that throw. Against cover 3, I'm not going to throw that throw come September. And so that's the whole point. It's practice, right? We're talking about practice. And so
not a game.
Not a game. But it's exactly what it's for. And so it's not a big deal at all. In fact, I actually like the fact that he threw picks because I think it's a learning experience for him to say, great, I know I can't do that against these type of defenses, and that's good to know moving forward. And now if he was throwing these in fall ball and, of course, in those first few games, then, yeah, I'd be definitely worried. But I think it's a time for him to learn. And so all in all, I think, I wouldn't say it's a positive per se, but it's a great learning experience, and I think it's something he'll be able to use moving forward.
David Nixon with us on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. David, great to talk to you, man. Look forward to your Raiders moving to Las Vegas and seeing how it impacts BYU football moving forward.
We'll have to go down there and do a pre- and post-game show for the Raiders one of these days. I like it.
Hey, let's do it. That's Michael.
We are in favor. Thanks.